Yeah, let's look at some news updates that are happening around us, both local and foreign. Let's look at some of them.
The protests in Iran continue, and these, viewers, are violent protests. People are taking to the streets in almost every province of the country. 92 cities have already seen these protests, and they're expanding even further. Authorities have launched a crackdown. Dozens are dead, but protests continue to spread. In the capital, security forces fired tear gas to disperse demonstrators at Tehran's Grand Bazaar on Tuesday. Protesters threw gas canisters amid clashes with forces. According to videos shared online, a large crowd gathered on a covered street and can be heard chanting slogans. These chants included "Death to the Dictator." Another video showed a statue of late Supreme Leader Ruhollah Khomeini and his successor Ali Khamenei set on fire by protesters in the Sistan and Balochistan province. Iranian authorities have not published an official death toll. However, the US-based human rights activists news agency reported the death toll at 36. And it said that 34 of these 36 confirmed deaths were protesters, while 2 were affiliated with the security forces of Iran. Over 2,000 people are said to be detained. The group relies on an internal activist network and has been fairly accurate in its reporting in the past as well. Iranian semi-official media reported that a policeman was shot dead by what they called rioters in Malik Shahi in the western province of Ilam. Malik Shahi is a district of about 20,000 people in Iran, many of them from Iran's Kurdish minority. There have been widespread protests and a violent crackdown by security forces in recent days. The protests were triggered by anger over the rising cost of living, an economic crisis, and a collapsing currency. The wave began on the 28th of December with a shutdown by merchants in the Tehran Bazaar, a national economic hub. It has since spread to other areas. Students have joined in. According to rights groups, over the past 10 days, at least 285 locations in 92 cities, as I mentioned earlier as well. And these are across 27 provinces of Iran. They have witnessed these protest gatherings. And as I mentioned, these are violent protests. The government of President Masoud Pezeshkian has announced modest monthly payments for people to alleviate the economic pain, but the Iranian currency continues to fall, according to the informal black market rate and several currency monitoring websites. Now, Iran's judiciary has warned that Tehran will offer no leniency to rioters, but it added that the public has a right to demonstrate. The head of the country's judiciary, Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejei, said that Iran listens to the protesters and their criticism and distinguishes between them and the rioters. All right, to discuss this further, I'm now being joined on the broadcast by Mr. Yusuf Jalali, who's a journalist joining us from Tehran. And I'm also joined by Assistant Professor Dr. Syed Imamian, who's also joining us from Tehran. So both our guests are from the capital of Iran. They understand what is happening in Iran, and essentially I want to understand, is this the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's biggest challenge yet? We'll start with Mr. Jalali. Sir, over to you. Do you find the Supreme Leader succumbing to this kind of pressure, and what kind of pressures is he under at this point?
Of course, this is the biggest challenge for the establishment so far. We had 2 major protests in the past years. One, the 2022 Mahsa Amini protest, which was targeting, of course, social freedoms, and it was targeting some human rights, of course, limited to the women in Iran. They demanded free rights to the free dress code, of course, so what we call hijab here. And of course, we had the 2019 protests that were fueled by the actually rise in fuel prices. But this time around, it's a major reason. The major reason targets bread and butter, which is economic. And this is affecting nearly all Iranians, given the current economic circumstances. It's not limited to a specific social group. It is affecting and impacting all strata of society. So this is why it is one of the biggest challenges for the Iranian establishment. And so far, we have not seen the sitting President Masoud Pezeshkian, to do any meaningful, concrete step to try to harness this economic situation.
Understood. Mr. Jalali, stay with me. Dr. Emamian, you've heard what Mr. Jalali said. And in my previous interaction with Mr. Jalali also, we had discussed the possible inclusion of US troops in this entire scenario because the threats are flowing in constantly from the US. Do you feel the US will get involved on the ground, and is this challenge going to be overwhelming the Supreme Leader of Iran? Dr. Emamian.
Thank you for inviting me here. Actually, I would like to say that the demonstration started with a very legitimate demand of the protesters, because devaluation of the Iranian currency has affected everyone in the country. But at the same time, everyone knows in Iran that, yes, there are a lot of incompetencies within the Iranian bureaucracy. And as an academic and analyst, I have written a lot about the problems and challenges and incompetencies within the Iranian economic administration. But at the same time, everyone knows that the main source of the current situation is the unilateral coercive measures, mainly imposed by the U.S. on the label of the sanctions. So, in post 12 days war, everyone thinks of the sanctions as a complementary measure for a comprehensive war machinery of the Israeli-U.S. alliance against Iran. So the reason, maybe the main reason, that the situation now in terms of the scale is very really now still very marginal with regards to the previous rounds of the unrest in 2022 and also the most scalable one in 2009, is that most of the people at the moment know that it would be a challenge for national security as a whole.
Understood.
And we are in the middle of the war. So the weaponization of the sanctions is something that has been used by the U.S. very much for several decades now.
Understood. Dr. Emamian, and now I take your point that Iran has faced worse in the past. They were able to get past that. They'll be able to get past this. Mr. Jalali, in your understanding, in your appreciation, if the US and the kind of threats that have been coming in, it wasn't in 2009 or 2019 that we saw US carrying out these kind of strikes that we saw in June last year. Those strikes getting involved directly with Israel, as Israel and Iran also had their first face-to-face or direct conflict for the first time. That happened in 2023 and then again in 2024. I wanted to understand this time, and going by all that has already happened by the US, whether it was in Nigeria, whether it was in Syria, whether it was in Yemen, or most recently in Venezuela, there seems to be more weight behind what Donald Trump is saying. Do you see or foresee a circumstance where the Supreme Leader flees Iran? Is it going to get to that point? Because certain intelligence reports are suggesting that.
Of course, first of all, let me clarify something. This is all a crisis, not just limited to the sanctions, as a professor pointed out. Of course, the sanctions are part of this scenario, part of this whole shebang, but it's not limited to the sanctions. We have been hearing a lot from Mr. Pezeshkian trying to play this blame game, blaming everything on the sanctions, the Western sanctions, and recently the snapback sanctions. Of course, snapback sanctions were imposed back in September and in October last year. But of course, the situation is happening right now, a couple of months later. Okay, so it's not just about sanctions, but it's about the fact that the reformist governments in Iran often put all their eggs in the basket of an overture to the West and trying to solve domestic economic woes and hardships by establishing closer ties with the Western governments. Of course, Iran lost numerous opportunities with the Eastern Hemisphere, like BRICS and the SCO. Those organizations are very much important for Iran. Iran forgot about its close ties with its Eastern allies like Russia and China amid reformist administrations like that of President Rouhani or the current incumbent president, Mr. Pezeshkian. So this has to be clarified first. And about the foreign intervention in the ongoing protests, it is likely because Iran has reported on several arrests, tracking down some protesters with ties to Mossad, at least based on official comments coming out of the state broadcaster, the IRIB.
So, Mr. Jalali, foreign interference is very much a reality that cannot be dismissed at this point. Dr. Emamian, let me come to you. Let me put it bluntly. Do you foresee the Supreme Leader exiting from Iran, paving the way for the Shah to return?
Actually, I'm not very much comfortable with the way that you are individualizing the Iranian political system.
Okay,
Iran has a very complicated political system. I have written about and I have published a lot about we call it kind of the multi-layer political system here. So it's not only about the Supreme Leader or President or any other officials in the system. It's a whole political system that they are responsible for answering the legitimate demand of the demonstrators. At the same time, they are responsible for defending Iranian national security. And for any kind of the incompetencies and kind of the corruptions that may happen and is happening now within the Iranian bureaucratic system, the whole system should be responsible for. But I think with regards to the scale of the situation now, and with regards to what we have seen in a very challenging period of time, we experienced in last June, 12 days war, the full-scale war against Iran, and the role of the Supreme Leader and the political system and the security establishment in defending the Iranian sovereignty, changing, if you remember, President Trump's unconditional surrender to unconditional ceasefire. I won't see, and no one is saying that there would be a chance or a possibility or likelihood for the Iranian senior officials to leave the country with such a scale of the demonstrations.
Understood.
And at the same time, as I said, the majority of the people, while most of them, including myself, we are affected by the economic situation now, but and we are very much in line with another colleague that mentioned about the incompetencies of using another opportunities in the Eastern sphere,
yes,
making economic deal with China, India, and emerging economies. But at the same time, everyone knows that we need to be very much careful about our national security with regards to the situation that we have experienced in the last few years in different countries. Libyaization and Syriaization of the Iran is a threat in the face of the Iranians.
Understood.
That if Israel had such an opportunity, he will go to not only demilitarize Iran, to have a kind of dividing the society.